Three, two, one. Good afternoon, everyone. Tony Martinez here again with Latino Tax Pro. And for this afternoon and evening, for those of you on the East Coast, we brought back our friend and colleague, Will Lopez with Gusto. Will, how's it going?
Hey, good to see you, Tony. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. We wanted to get you on because Friday, some new legislation passed, a brand new
No,
law. Uh,
really?
Again,
Another one passed?
yeah, again, and it's like, so what's we'll describe what it is, and then I want to ask you my first question. I'm going to ask you is why does it keep going back and forth? So before I even ask my first question, the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act,
Yep.
also known as HR 7010, signed by President Trump Friday, June 5th. Now it looks like the intent is to fix something or update some of the things that are going on with the PPP program, or what's
Yep.
going on, Will? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So it seems to be a common trend that when some legislation gets rolled out, people look at it, they kind of say yes, no, they start pushing back. They want, things updated, things clarified. And so that PPP Flexibility Act is what recently passed to literally do exactly what it's kind of titled to do, to provide flexibility to that Paycheck Protection Program that was passed 2 months ago. So the Flexibility Act amends many of like the previous PPP rules and includes updates to things like the forgiveness period, the amount that has to be spent on payroll expenses to achieve that full loan forgiveness amount, the timeline for restoring the workforce levels, all the way to things like, the loan repayment timeline, payment of Social Security taxes, so on and so forth. So it amended some of the frustrations and the pain points around the original Paycheck Protection Program through this new legislation.
Got it. Is that typical of legislation that a piece, legislation piece gets passed, the bill gets passed, and then there's feedback from the community, and then an amendment gets passed? Or does it usually filter out before it even becomes a law to begin with? I'm thinking because of all the urgency that has something to do with passing an amendment to an original law, right?
Yeah, it really depends. I think my apologies.
No worries, do your thing, do your thing.
Working from home.
Cool.
Um, so it just really depends on the situation. And I think for a lot of the heartache that was going on around the Paycheck Protection Program, that's why this one surfaced, because there was just so much that was unclear in the original legislation where, SBA had to provide guidance and then guidance to the guidance and then QA to the guidance. And now there were like really a lot of struggles because small businesses weren't getting their funding in time. So there's a lot of concerns about that 8-week window,
Oh,
or their ability to actually spend all the money within the 8-week window. That was also the concern as far as like, do we have time to actually spend this in 8 weeks? Like, what if the economy doesn't open and I don't want to pay my staff in 8 weeks because I need to pay them after 12 weeks when the economy reopens, right? And so there was this really tough experience that a lot of business owners were getting themselves into, of like getting this money and kind of sitting on it because of the realness of the shutdown, and them not wanting to spend the money too fast, hoping that they would be able to bring employees back on past that 8-week threshold.
yeah, I know some of the feedback that we were getting is was, we gotta spend it. We have 8 weeks to spend it, and but we can't even open. We're not even able to
Right.
open our whether restaurant, whether business full time, retail store. So what do we do? How do we spend it? Do we pay these guys to stay home? And so I know that was a lot of confusion. But
Yep.
now, from the new amended the Flexibility Act allows you to spend the money in a 24-week period or by the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, one of the aspects that changed within that Flexibility Act is before the original PPP program allowed the loan forgiveness period to be 8 weeks long. in the act, they amended that and said that borrowers can choose to extend their forgiveness period to 24 weeks. So they extended it by a good 16 weeks, or basically triple the original value.
Got it. And does that apply to new loans, or if you have one already, if you have a loan already, could you amend it, or could you do something about that?
And so it applies to both retrospective and new loans.
Oh, that's what you said. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then now, if you have to repay some of that money back, it looks like you have up to 5 years to repay it instead of 2 now.
Yeah. So they extended it past 5 years because looking at the recent data about COVID impacting the economy longer than that, February 15th to June 30th window, which was the initial window of like the impact, right? And then the repayment of the monies within that 2-year time frame, it looks like, small businesses were getting good chunks of money, and that cash flow pressure within, trying to pay back that loan within 2 years was a lot heavier than 5 years. So they extended it out to say, you know what, let's give you more time to actually repay this loan rather than an aggressive shorter time frame.
Yes. Something I'm trying to figure out, it's a little confusing to me, is the loan deferment. I know previously you could defer up to 6 months of payments on the loan.
Right.
But now it looks like you have until this period of, first you need to determine how much you're going to repay back or how much of it is forgiven. And then after that, you then have to make your first payment. Or how does that work, Will?
Yeah. So the loan, the loan repayment, the only thing that changed within the act was that 2 to 5 year period. So like the initial repayment timeline was that 2 years, and then they extended it and modified it to 5 years. And I think the initial payment was pushed out to 12 months.
Okay.
Is what I think it was pushed out to.
Yeah. It's because there's still a lot of confusion, and there was some confusion regarding also how to calculate the full FTE, full-time employment calculation. But I want to show everybody your blog, because Gusto has a great blog here. Let me share my screen. And so where I found this was here. I just researched it, and then the title of this article is What You Need to Know About the Paycheck Protection Flexibility Act. It kind of dived into it, how it works, what you need to know, etc. Do you guys have, and I was like, it was created by the Gusto editors. You guys must have a team, or how do you guys work in terms of getting all this great content? I'm curious to find out.
Well, yeah, so we do have a team of editors, and they are still burning the midnight oil with everything going on. And so there's a core team of like attorneys inside Gusto. So we have a legal team, we have a content generation team, we have industry experts, HR experts, all of this internally. So we basically have like a PPP SWAT team, for lack of a better word, which is consisted of a lot of cross-functional team members. I'm one of them, and I think it's something between 80 and 90 Gusto employees that are devoted to like the PPP stuff and the CARES Act, and we're constantly working together to digest the information quickly and serve up these blogs. So Gusto Editors probably is a collaboration between Mohini or Riddy or content marketing and legal and all this kind of stuff, or even me chipping in certain areas. But it's basically a bunch of people that kind of dive in, make sure like the whole piece is totally knocked out, as quickly as possible, and then just out into the wild. Yeah, no, definitely. And for those of you, since we're on Facebook Live, those of you that are on, I'm curious, do you have clients that took out a PPP loan? Drop a comment. I'm curious to find out your feedback. Or did you, as an accountant or tax professional, did you get a PPP loan? We want to answer your questions as we're here live with Will Lopez from Gusto, going over the new Paycheck Protection Flexibility Act. Or is it Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act? Yep, you got it. Yeah, there it is. Another acronym, the PPPFA. No, definitely. Do you envision any other new legislation coming up? I know you guys are on it. You guys are in DC. You guys have a team just staying on top of all the legislation. Is there anything you guys see down the pipeline? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of legislation being tossed at Congress. So I don't think there's any shortage of new legislation that's that I would say is probably smaller in scope, just like refining things, clearing things up, perhaps certain, let's say minority groups need more assistance than others, and there's legislation around all of that that Congress is kind of kicking around. As far as something like massive, similar to like the CARES Act or the Families First Act or the PPP Flexibility Act, they are kind of talking about that fourth stimulus package, but I think it's still kind of TBD. It really depends on just kind of where the economy is going, how everyone is doing, whether or not jobs are bouncing back, furloughed employees are being brought back to work, all of that kind of stuff. So I think there's a real opportunity for a massive fourth stimulus legislation to occur. I think there's probably a certain there's a certain amount of variables that need to be hit, I think, in the mind of either A, the president, B, Congress, to say, you know what, I think a fourth package is necessary at this moment in order to get the economy over the hump or whatever.
Nice, of course. What's your advice for those that still have not applied for the PPP loan? Should they go to an online vendor? I've been reading like there's like Cabbage or Blue Vine. Other people are saying, no, don't go there. Go to your local bank. Some people are like, I don't have a bank because there's a lot of sole proprietors out there with no employees, but they could still take advantage of the PPP loan, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we created a landing page for that, and I'll share that with you if you want to post it in the Facebook chat. But we created a landing page for that Paycheck Protection Program, and in that kind of breaks down the program, and then also offers any kind of guidance or recommendations around lenders that you can get yourself into. What I've been trying to tell people really is just because PPP and the EIDL has just dominated the news cycle, and that's all anyone ever talks about, that don't forget about like all the local, private, state financial relief that you can access and get yourself into. There's just dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of avenues to get relief for your business that actually have less stringent requirements than the PPP or the EIDL, less documentation to prove, just less hurdles to jump through. And one of my personal fears is that people are, small business owners are getting caught up, and accountants are getting caught up with like the big names, the big wigs of the PPP and the EIDL, and are overlooking the real resources available to them, just inches from their fingers around the local stuff. And Gusto created a COVID-19 resource hub where we keep this spreadsheet up to date that you can filter based on state, based on industry, to access all that private, state, local government financial resources, and kind of use the filters to make it actionable. So I'll try to Slack it to you here or send it to you here in the chat. But I would go through that and just apply for everything. You know what it reminds me of? Remember in like high school where it was like, you're trying to get into college, you get into college, and then you just apply for all the grants that you can apply for, right? And hoping that you get whatever you can get. I feel like that's the same behavior that we should be getting ourselves into around coronavirus, right? Just apply for all of it. Don't hold yourself back. Don't talk yourself out of anything, but apply for all the grants, all the relief that's out there, and see what you get and take whatever you can get.
Yeah, you know what? I love that. Yeah, so you said it's a spreadsheet you guys have, or a resource, right? That has per state. Is that how you guys organize it?
Yes, that's per state. So let me actually give it to you here, and then we can share it with the group. But yeah, it's excellent resource. We keep it up to date all internally because we need to understand what's out there, because we obviously have a lot of inbound calls from our own Gusto users and our own Gusto partners. But we decided to surface it to the public to say, hey, this is an amazing resource. If we're keeping it internally always up to date, you should be aware of it as well.
Awesome. And as you do that, we're getting some comments and some questions. I love it. So we have a comment on Facebook, Henry Freitas, saying, I applied for the PPP loan and was approved, and also one of my clients. So
awesome.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Great to hear that. Marina Noguera is saying hi from sunny San Diego, California.
Hey.
Cool. And then Henry again saying the PPP is constantly changing.
Nice.
Indeed. And then
It is the bane of our existence during 2020.
yeah, but that makes sense what you just said though, right? I mean, like the news cycle is dominated by PPP, idle, and even like the YouTube videos and us as accountants for launching all these resources, but we focus too much on these two things, and there's so many other things that are available. Grants.
Oh yeah, totally. Actually, let me share my screen real quick, and I'll show you
Yeah.
this resource. But this is the resource here that you can get yourself into. I just slacked it, or I just sent it to you, Tony, via the chat.
Okay.
But you can let me refresh here. You can basically go down to this table right here, and it's updated live in real time, and actually access every single state's resource, the detail of that, the website that you would need to visit, the business type and purpose, the amount that you could potentially get through this resource, the type of resource. The last time it was updated by our team, as you can tell, we're updating things constantly, but
Yeah.
this has literally 702 opportunities for you to get additional resources above and beyond PPP and idle.
God, I'm looking at a doc that says People Advisory Playbook. I don't know
Sorry. Let me show this one right here.
There you go. Yeah, I wasn't even sure what that was.
Sorry. This one. Can you see this?
There you go. Okay, so is that the one you sent me here? Because I'm looking at the chat. I'm sure. If not, you'll send it to me.
Yeah. So this is the one right here, that small business financial relief page, and this is where we give you up to date information on every single state, private, public.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I just opened it up. So that's what you have on there too. Oh, that's so cool. So that's a link, and then sorry, you were saying city by county by state. Wow, that's awesome.
Yep. And there's 702 resources in here, or records in here. You can download it if you want. Here's the little option to download the CSV version. You can make this bigger. If you have access to, if you know of something that we don't know about, or you don't see it here, you can submit it, and then our team will update this in real time. I mean, pretty amazing stuff that's out there. And like I said, there's PPP and idle, and then there's 700 plus other stuff.
Yeah, that is awesome. This is great to hear. So everybody that's listening, that's why you tune into our Facebook Live for these kind of resources. So we'll be sure to share that link from Gusto. And we are getting a lot of comments here. Hi from Fort Worth, Texas. The question: does the PPP work for a company with an independent contractor? So no, you need to have employees, or you could be a contractor and you could apply yourself as a sole proprietor. But you having contractors underneath you doesn't calculate into the calculation, right? So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And then another question here from Andrew, actually on the Zoom. So we have a few people on the actual Zoom here. So to clarify, as long as you use the funds for paychecks during this year period, you can have it forgiven. Yeah, I mean, there's certain calculations. You need to use 60% for payroll, and you have up to 24 weeks to use the money, or the end of the year. And then you still got to apply for forgiveness, right? Well, they're not just going to forgive you. You need to actually apply for that.
Yeah, correct. You need to apply for forgiveness. They don't automatically give it to you. And the forgiveness application process actually asks for the proof of expenses, whereas the initial asking for the funding doesn't need any kind of proof. And the reason why that was done was to accelerate funding, right? They're not trying to ask for proof early on. They want to ask for proof towards the tail end to forgive it. So in order to give you the money, they took basic information, certain information, in order to accelerate the funding. And then if you want it forgiven, then you're going to have to really prove the expenses that you said you were going to pay for with actual receipts and bills and stuff like that. And Tony, I just sent you over the Q&A or the blog around can independent contractors and self-employed people apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. So we break down that whole process within that blog for any of you that are there.
Yeah, awesome. Another question here: can a business apply for the PPP loan twice? No, right? It's only a one-time thing.
Yeah, great question. So in that Paycheck Protection Program landing page that I gave you, Tony, the first one, there's a Q&A at the bottom, and then it says, should I submit more than one application? Our recommendation is no. This could actually risk your chance of getting the loan. You may want to join multiple wait lists, but be sure to submit your official application once. So that's our recommendation, and that's what we've seen, not only with legal counsel behind that, but what we've seen out there in the profession, as far as like, you don't want to risk your chance in submitting your loan application in multiple places, because the system is probably not the greatest at understanding that there are multiple applications for the same person. So they may think that you're trying to abuse the system, therefore rejecting your application altogether because they see more than one. Does that make sense? So it's by default, it's not trying to weed you out intentionally. What it's trying to do is prevent abuse. And so, our recommendation is, don't risk your chance of getting the loan. Join a couple wait lists, but only submit your application once.
Got it. That makes sense. And we have a really active Facebook group today, or live here. Another question here. Thank you from Yolanda Arechiga. She's saying, thank you for all this important information. Can you take the PPP loan, have it forgiven, and also apply for another SBA loan? I don't know if you have that answer or.
Yes. So you can do separate types of loans through the SBA. So you can actually apply for both the PPP and the EIDL. You're just not allowed to use both for the same purpose within the PPP window of time. So you can also get financing from other sources, and that's absolutely fine too. Those other sources are probably going to have more stringent requirements to it, or quite honestly, more traditional requirements like background check, personal guarantee, credit check, all that kind of stuff, where like PPP and EIDL didn't have any of those requirements. Well, EIDL did as far as like credit, but PPP did not. And obviously for the purpose was to accelerate funding, right? But if you're going to go for alternative lending sources, where the recent legislations provided regulatory relief, you're going to put yourself underneath those other similar regulations, like, what's your credit like? Will you sign the bottom? Will you associate your social security number and personal assets against this loan? All that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Thanks for that answer. Another question here from Marina again. Also, could I apply for the PPP loan if I have my full-time job as a W-2 employee, but also I'm a business owner? Apparently Marina is an employee, but also part-time she owns a tax business, so she's a tax pro. But in that case, I guess she could apply, but only use the income of her small business as a sole proprietor to apply, or is she disqualified because she's also an employee of another firm?
So the question is, does she own her own practice?
Yeah. So she has two jobs in essence. One, she's an employee of a tax firm, and then another job where she has a side business where she's a sole proprietor. No employees, just sole proprietor. Has some income there. And then, but the question is, does she get disqualified because she's also an employee of another firm? So she does two things. She has a business, but she's also an employee.
So no, you don't automatically get disqualified just because your tax situation is more complex than the normal situation. It just means that you have to go request the money in the proper way. So for example, if you're owning your own tax practice and you're an S Corp, you have to make sure that the company itself applies for the PPP loan. If you're not an S Corp and you're like a Schedule C sole proprietor, then you have to apply for the loan through your Schedule C as an independent contractor or self-employed individual. So no, you don't get disqualified. You just have to make sure that you apply for the loan through the proper way in which it should be applied based on your tax status. And if you do it wrong, that's where, you'll just get rejected because you didn't, not that because you're disqualified because of your situation, but because you asked for the money the wrong way.
Yeah. So a good example, let's say that I have a a small business. I'm a sole proprietor. I make $12,000 a year in profit, right? Very small. But I have investments, and then I have rentals, and I have all kinds of other revenue over here. I guess the question is, can I take those $12,000 gain of my 2019 tax return, use that to get a PPP loan, or will they say, wait, you have like $300,000 here and other sources of revenue. We're not going to give you a loan for your small business. But I don't know if you've seen that or if that's.
Well, so yeah, so I mean, they're not going to not give you the loan. It just has to meet all the criteria, right? So like for self-employed individuals, the PPP, let's say like loan forgiveness process, what they want to see is that you submitted an application that covers either your wages, your commissions, income, or any other kind of net earnings as a self-employed individual, right? And then obviously the proof around it as far as like payments of interest, business rent, utilities. So it's not so much a matter of, you know, your tax situation is complex. It's a matter of, depending on your business income, how it comes to you, whether it's S Corp, C Corp, Schedule C, you have to apply based on your tax status and then fold into the eligibility requirements, which is generally like, were you in operation as of February 15th when the event happened? You know, are you an individual with self-employment income or corporate income? You know, is your place of employment here in the United States and not internationally? Did you file a Schedule C in 2019 versus a K1 with, you know, 941s and all that kind of stuff? So it you know, just because your tax situation is complex doesn't disqualify you. You just have to just means you have to work with your lender to give them exactly what they're looking for based on your situation. So that would be my ultimate recommendation, is work with your lender to say, here's my situation, here's my tax situation. And they'll say, okay, great, self-employment income over here, corporate income over here, and they'll tell you exactly what they want.
Yeah, no, I feel you. A lot of the times we'll get questions, or even me, like if I go to another a forum or an event, I'm asking questions, what if? And they'll tell me, just do it and you'll find out. Kind of, you know, almost to an extent, we're like, yeah, you know, that's a pretty unique situation, but work with that resource and they can navigate you through it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, don't try to talk yourself out of this, and just, you know, and I think that's just probably human nature, is to try to understand all the answers before you make any decisions.
Yeah.
And that just leads to indecision and just you not making a leap. So I would say just know enough to feel comfortable that if you go to your lender, they'll help you out and help you work through it.
Love it. Yeah. And then she said, thanks for your answer. So awesome. Henry is asking, and I don't know if you know, have this answer, but how does the PPP loan affect your pandemic unemployment PUA? What does the A stand for? Pandemic unemployment assistance? Yeah. I guess, do you know how that affects, by the way, or? Well?
Yeah. So your PPP loan shouldn't affect your unemployment situation. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, for employees who are not the owners of the businesses, they have the ability to seek unemployment for themselves in the event of the furlough or being laid off. Right? As the employer, the business owner, you too can seek unemployment, but you have to understand your state's requirements when it comes to self-employed individuals going after unemployment assistance. So it's very state by state driven. Not one state is similar to the next. So the answer is generally yes. You can go for the assistance. No, it should impact both your unemployment compensation ability and your PPP loan ability, but you have to understand the rules and regulations within your state.
Perfect. And then Andrew Sandoval on our Zoom here. Let's see, because here I want to say on our Zoom we have 4 people. We have Andrew, Beta, Juanita, and Patty. Awesome. Hey guys, I'm glad you're on the Zoom, an actual Zoom webinar. But Andrew's asking, thanks for your response. So he's asking about the forgiveness. So if I use the funds, if I can use the funds up to 24 weeks, and then I would apply for forgiveness, when will be my first payment I have to pay? So the way I understand it is, let's say you take up to the 24 weeks to spend the funds. Then at that point, you apply for forgiveness. they determine that they're going to forgive everything except a small portion. After that, then you start making your first payment towards that small portion that was not forgiven, and you have 5 years to pay that off. Is that correct?
Um, yes, that is correct. Um, there is some. Let me see if I could find it here. And
Yeah.
if
And I
you,
also want to give everyone a small disclaimer. We're not attorneys. This is the way we understand the law. This is the way we navigate through it. We're looking at resources. So take this as some advice, but a guidance, but don't take it. Well, Will told me or Tony told me, because we're going to say, we don't know nothing. We just, that's the way we just understand it. And a lot of the times, obviously, we're navigating, but your feedback is also making us better.
yeah. So according to the Flexibility Act, it says if a borrower fails to apply for forgiveness within 10 months after the last day of the PPP loan forgiveness covered period, again, that's whichever one of these come first, like the 24 weeks from the day the loan was funded or December 31st, 2020, then you must begin loan payments. So if you fail to apply for forgiveness 10 months after the last day of that 24 weeks, whichever comes first, 10 months later, or the end of this year, that you need to start paying the loan back right away.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for the information. Yeah, this is awesome. So everyone that's listening on Facebook and here on the Zoom, let us know if these webinars or these Facebook Lives, are beneficial. Let us know if you would like to join the Gusto newsletter and check out their blogs. And you guys have a podcast too, right? Well,
we have a LinkedIn podcast that we do, or a live event on LinkedIn. But yeah, so let me give you so we have a weekly newsletter for accounting professionals, bookkeepers, and accountants called On the Margins, which is, I just sent it to you, which is the work that Caleb Newquist does, but it has all the latest and greatest that we're doing. Obviously very entertaining to read at the same time because, this is accounting. But Caleb does a great job on the Margins. So.
Awesome. And for those of you, those of our members who first time seeing you, not sure who you are. So, Will, you used to own your own, I don't know if you still own it, but you're a CPA, you're an accountant, right?
So I used to own AdvisorFi, which was a South Florida based accounting firm. So I've been in public accounting all my life, and it was only till last year that I joined Gusto.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it.
I was doing tax work, tax prep, tax planning, bookkeeping, all that stuff.
Yeah. So all the members, everyone that's listening, ask us any questions. Today we're talking about obviously the PPPFA, but if you encounter certain things in your practice or best practices or some challenges, hey, we're all ears. We want to make this very interactive and dynamic. But perfect. Oh, there is one question and one more question from Beta on the Zoom. Does a business owner need to provide year-to-date financial statements, for example, profit and loss, balance sheet, to qualify? I would say, yeah.
Yeah, so for the most part, yes, given the situation, but you need to work very closely with the lender. The lender will tell you what they need. Generally speaking, for companies that have employees, from my understanding, not a lot of vendors are actually asking for pro forma financial statements. Where they're asking for pro forma financial statements for the most part are those self-employed individuals, because they don't have payroll and because they're taking distributions or owner draws. So the banks are asking for financial statements within certain time periods, not pro forma, but financial statements within a certain time period or an equivalent time period from the year before to show that income has been generated. So, my answer is it depends. Work with the lender to see what they need.
Perfect. And then I do have a comment here. Great. How do I work with Gusto? And I noticed you give us a link. So an accountant could become a Gusto partner. Is that how they work with Gusto? What does that mean to be a Gusto partner?
Yeah, so Gusto offers a partner program to accounting professionals, bookkeepers, CPAs, EAs, tax practitioners. And basically, Gusto's partner program allows you to access all this COVID-19 resources that we have inside the app. even all the bulk tools that we have around PPP reports. So like if you had all your clients on Gusto and you were trying to apply for the PPP loans for all your clients, in a few clicks, you could download all the payroll reports that are, and the PPP report that we've created to apply for the loan, all at once. So, you know, being a part of our program on a normal day is obviously supporting your clients to help pay, insure, you know, and support hardworking clients and their teams. And that includes payroll, benefits, and HR. With everything going on around COVID-19 and just the shutdown, we've created an entire in-app experience and product around COVID-19. So both your clients can access all the blog resources, all the content resources, and all the payroll functionality to actually make use of the CARES Act. So through our platform, you can apply through PPP. Through Gusto, you can get your PPP report. Through Gusto, you can actually get your PPP forgiveness report, which is a different way to structure your payroll data to make sure that your loan is forgiven. Through Gusto, you can, you know, access that Social Security tax deferral, which was that part of the CARES Act to defer your Social Security income taxes or your employer taxes to provide even more financial relief. So, you know, we've done a lot of things within Gusto that's totally free of charge, free to join Gusto, to make sure that both the accounting professionals that partner with us and their clients can, you know, survive and hopefully thrive through everything that's going on.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. And so anybody's interested, let us know, drop a comment. Will often goes into the post and you could, are you going to jump in, Will? If you could reply to the post, you could see people commenting and we could connect you with Will for sure.
Yep, I see it here. Looks great.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for your time. Great info. Looks like we had a really engaged audience today, and let's keep these going. Looks like people love it. So I really appreciate your time and resources, Will, and Gusto.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tony, and see you, everybody. Stay safe.
See you soon. Bye.